Am I paranoid, or are you giving me signs? I think I'm paranoid, or you give the reason why I am paranoid. Maybe it's all in my mind, okay, I'm paranoid. I can't slow my mind down. You're spinning my head right round.
What is up, guys? I am back. I had to get a couple of special tools to do these two parts. You've got the clutch and you've got the oil spinner. You're gonna need a special tool. What's that? A locking nut? A locking nut tool. See that? Castellated. There's two different sizes on each end. I'll put a link in the description for that. I can't remember the sizes at the moment. And for the flywheel, you're going to need a special puller, which is M30 by 1.5. So it's a female thread, which is M30, and then the actual size of the thread, the gaps in between, is 1.5, and that should do you. You can pick up. I can't remember how much this was now, but I think both of them were about 20 quid for the pair, so which you'll keep anyway. So yeah, you'll need those two for these parts. So first of all, I took off the spinner. Oil spinner was the first thing to take off. When the flywheel is on, these two teeth will meet. The flywheel, the clutch, sorry, and these will meet. Now I used, to hold it, to undo the locking nuts, 2p. If you get it in between the teeth, it won't damage anything. It won't damage the teeth on there, it won't damage the teeth on the clutch. So that's a good tip. I've always done that. 1p, 2p. You can see, oh no, I think that's just oil. But yeah, so you want to wedge that in when you're undoing the locking nuts. So first, you want to undo the oil spinner. Once you've undone it, just leave it on, just crack it off. Then you want to undo that one on the clutch, crack it off, make sure it's loose. Then the flywheel, the oil spinner, sorry, the oil spinner should just slide off nicely, and the same with the oh no, sorry, once you've undone that, you can and then have to undo this, which sits just on there. You need to undo those bolts, undo the clutch bolt, and this whole assembly sort of comes out together because it sort of sits like this, so you can't pull the clutch off without undoing these bolts as well. So those two bolts there, that bolt, and then take these three off, and you can see the nut just in there. And then behind that you've got the oil pump, which I think it is. When you take this plate off, there will be some shit inside there. You just want to clean it all out, get it nice and clean. So when you've done that, this cog here, now if you can see the woodruff key, I've already taken this off and I nearly lost the woodruff key because it fell down in one of those little wells which still have a little bit of oil in, and I couldn't see it, but luckily I just caught a glimpse as it fell in. Also note these locating dowels for the oil pump. There's one there, and there's one right down the bottom there. There's one there, and then one there. Be careful because these come out as well. These sit in the back of the pump. Okay, so now the flywheel side. The flywheel will be attached to here. You get your puller, screw it onto the threads on the flywheel, get it nice and tight. Well, I say put pressure on it, And then what you want to do is use a rubber mallet. As you've got pressure on it and you tap it round with a rubber mallet, it will slowly start to come off. Just give it a tweak, tap it round, give it a tweak, tap it round. When you undo this bolt, do not take it all the way off. Just undo it and give it about 3 to 4 mil. So make sure you keep it on there, so the puller can press against this spline, but with the nut right on the edge, so it doesn't fuck the threads up on there. And so if the flywheel does pop, it won't fly off. It'll literally just pop to where the nut is. That is it. So just pressure on it, tap it round with a rubber mallet, not with a normal one because there's magnets in here and they will crack, and you don't want that. So crack it off a tiny bit and just tap it round, more pressure, tap it round, and just keep tightening and tightening. And yeah, it should pop off. Now, when you take it off, there is the nut and there's a washer. That's that on that side. On the back side of it, if I can pick it all up, if the bearing doesn't fall out, oh, there we go. There's a roller bearing, which should be in there. So make sure the roller bearing and the washer and the nut are all kept together. And there's also a woodruff key right in there, which is just here, but these are normally solid, whereas the other side they're quite loose. So, but just in case, make sure you keep an eye out for this little bastard, because it's very important. Okay, so once you've got the flywheel off, you've got the clutch off, you've got the oil spinner off, they're all off. What you want to do is clean up the spline on this side. Sorry if the picture's a bit crap, the light's crap in here. Clean around here, because we're going to have to pull this through from the other side, and the last thing we want is to fuck up this seal. So give it a good clean before we carry on. I forgot to mention, behind the flywheel, in the top corner here, there's this little cog. Now that will come off as well. Just bear in mind, remember that this little bastard, that little spacer there, is on the same shaft. So if you take it off and you find this little spacer, that's where it's from. Okie dokie. It's from I think that's the starter bendix, which goes up here on the flywheel. So now we've got this. What we need to do, if you look here, pull this down away from it, and then pull this whole assembly out. So now it's just gone past there. I'm going to need two hands, so I'm going to have to pause it. But this whole assembly should just pull out from the other side. Sorry, I mean from this side. Pull it out. So it's quite hard, but it does slide out. Slide this piece off. Remember about the woodruff key. Focus. So a little half moon thing. Make sure that stays with this. Now you've got two spacers on this shaft. 1 and 2. Note that the smallest one comes off first. Well, I'll say smallest, but you can see there, one's thicker than the other. Then you want to remove this spacer. Make sure you put that one with the oil spinner, so you know it goes behind the oil spinner. Okay, so now back to the cam chain and the flywheel side. What we're going to do, we need to take the cam chain off. This little pivot here is the tensioner. Now, I'm guessing this obviously puts tension on that pivot there. So what we're going to do is undo that bolt and make sure the tension is working properly, rather than undoing this bolt first I'm going to have to remove it anyway, but we'll undo this bottom one first. Okay, so once we've cracked one off, hey, this 14mm here, be very careful because there's a spring and there will be oil inside. So just do it very slowly, and there we go. Okie dokie. So there is a washer on there, a copper washer. And the spring. And the tube. The tube, if it's stuck, just give it a little nudge and she'll slide right out. Sorry about the quality, my camera's being a bit of a twat. Great, so that's out. And you can see it's all loose. You should be able to take the cam chain off now. I have to start from the bottom, I think. It's a bit of a twat because of that, but there we go. Come on, you little fart breath. I think I'm going to need 2 hands because chains don't bend. There we go. Sorry about that. There's the cam chain, which is just like a normal chain. And most of the time they're not just like a normal chain. So once the cam chain's off, now we can undo this, the tensioner. But it's going to be very stiff. Okay, now the tensioner's off. Be very careful. There's a little spacer inside there. Goes inside of it. And just keep that to one side. Okay, so next, undo this 10mm bolt here. And remove this little plate. Okay, make sure you don't lose your 10mm bolt. Now I've just took that off, and can you see that shit? So make sure you take it off and clean all that up. This bolt here is an oil drain bolt for your cam chain tensioner, so the oil and stuff will come out of that bolt there. You don't need to take that out to split it, so just leave it in there if you want. Oh, and this pin, this is what the starter bendix goes on, that little cog I showed you. Yeah, that just slides out. So just remember that. Use a 5mm Allen key to undo the bottom tensioner. Now what we want to do, this little plate that we took off, that bolts to here, it's covering this little hole. And in that hole, there is a spring, and it's sort of like a little bullet. You see there? So that goes in, and the spring sits inside. Just sits inside of it, and that little plate covers those. Now the spring's not that hard to get out, but that outer bit is. But what I found is a little M6 bolt goes off my my GoPro. If you take the spring out and put it in there, it's a loose fit, but you sort of need to keep pressure on the outsides, wiggle it round and pull. So keep pressure on it and wiggle out and pull it, and it will slide out just a tiny little bit. And you have to just try whatever. I was thinking elastic band, maybe shove it in there and then pull it out, because there's oil around the outside. So it sort of vacuums it in there. It's a bit of a twat. But yeah, so that is behind there. You need to take that out as well, because I'm not sure if it'll fall in if you open the cases. Okay, back to the clutch side. Just found out on the crank where the spinner goes, this little cog here comes off too. Just give it a little wiggle, and she will slide off as well. Now there's a woodruff key just in there. Doesn't want to focus, it's a bit dark in here now. There's a woodruff key just there. Another thing we need to do on the clutch side is remove this bolt here and that bolt there. So we have it. You've got the bolt, you've got this arm, you have a washer on the back, and then you have the spring. It sits like that when it goes on. And that piece there sits just on that linkage on the selector. On the back of this one, on the selector, it's just literally a bolt and this big retaining washer. This bit just pulls off the selector. Now if you see now, that little tiny pin actually comes out. So when you pull it off, be very careful about these two little pins because they do move. Okay, do not lose those. Okay, so let's recap. The only things you need to do now is remember where the locating dowels go. I mean, they normally only fit in certain holes anyway, but there's one here. Take that out. Pop it on there. Oh, I forgot to tell you. The screen. The screen slides in there, and the other locating dowel is there. Any locating dowels you can leave in, but if you can remember where they go, take them out, and you can always pop them back in because you can give the case a clean up. Okay, party people, for those that are still with us, we need to undo that bolt, that bolt, that bolt, bolt here, bolt there, bolt here, this one, this one, this one, and this one up here. So all the remaining bolts that you can see, I think they're all 8mm. Yep. We're going to leave that one in, I'm going to leave that one in. So remove the remaining 8mm bolts that you can see. Right, they might laugh at my shit artistic talents, but this is a really good idea, and I do it most of the time when I do engines. Look at that. You can't even tell. You can't tell the difference. It's just fucking identical. But yeah, draw a shit little drawing like this that you get your 2-year-old, 3-year-old daughter to fucking do, and mark out the bolt holes where you take the bolts out. When you take a bolt out, push it through the cardboard. Job's good, and you know what goes where. And then what you should be left with, oh sorry, that's the wrong engine, it's this engine. Now what you should be left with is all the bolts out. Don't worry about those two little shit things up there, or those two. Now don't shit yourself, but it might fall apart. There is sealant sealing these two cases together. There's no gasket. On some engines there is a gasket there, but on this there isn't. It's basically just insta-gasket. So now with a little bit of a tap with a rubber mallet, it should split in half. If you can, try and have the engine facing completely upright, which is what I'm going to try and do now. I can't use my other camera at the moment because it's been gay. But yeah, now it should split with all those bolts out. So just be careful, don't shit yourself, because I can get you guys a diagram if you need it, say if cogs come off or dowels or anything like that. So yeah, time to split the engine. Do it gently, don't use a normal hammer, for fuck's sake. Use a rubber mallet. Gently tap all the way around the edge. Try and slide the cases apart from each other. You can sort of put your thumb on this shaft and pull the case apart. So yeah, I'm going to do that now. Ta-da! Right, the only problem I had, and it's doing my head in a bit, is this little shithead. Your sprocket, your front sprocket attaches to the other side of this, and it should all come out, but for some reason it got stuck, so I've had to separate the gearbox from this side. So it's a bit of a pain in the ass. So I've got to try and get that. I mean, it's loose. It turns. It just feels like there's something holding that assembly to the case. So I'm going to have a quick look. But yeah, there we have it. Split. Boom. Now to replace the crank.
I'm reaching in my cupboard for a painkiller.